Wow, I actually decided to make this video. Hi. Never thought that would happen. Hi, I am the Seaman235, and I'm making a video I probably should have made, like, I don't know, probably sometime around 3 months ago. They are probably gonna release some more DLC for the game, but whatever. And the game I'm talking about is Sonic Forces. So, Sonic Forces is a game. It's certainly a game. That's definitely what it is. And I'm walking around as I do this, by the way, so if you hear some background noise, that's why. I know I probably should do this legit with, like, the camera focusing on me, but I'm lazy and I can't set things up right now because there's, like, tons of shit in the kitchen and we have yet to put it away. So for now, this is what you get. Sonic Forces is a game I played, God, like, sometime in November, of course, but I stopped playing it around probably sometime in January. It's gotten a lot of mixed reactions from people, and unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be much nicer to it. So, when Generations was... not... yeah, Generations. I wonder why I confused it for Generations. How did I ever do that? When Sonic Forces was announced sometime in 2016, I believe, sometime around E3? Sometime around there. It wasn't on E3, I know that for sure. They did it either at E3 or before E3, I forget when. But they had the Sonic anniversary stream for the 25th anniversary, and my, what a disaster that was. But even Mania made fun of it, but putting that disaster piece aside, Mania and Sonic Forces were announced, and Sonic Forces was just called Project Sonic 2017. I actually have a video around that time of the announcement, so I can link that in the description if you guys are interested, but only if you're interested, because shameless plugs, because those are always fun. When it comes to Sonic Forces, I was very excited for it because it looked like another Boost game, and then we got confirmation it was a Boost game. They were going back to the Boost formula. As for my opinions on Sonic Lost World now, I kind of want to wait for a Sonic retrospective to do that, but considering my friend Zach doesn't seem to want to do that anytime soon, I'll just give my opinions on it very quickly right here. It was a fine platformer in its own right, it was a decent game in its own right. It took me a while to get used to the controls because they didn't really teach me, it doesn't really convey its control scheme very well, but overall, I thought it was a decent game in its own right. As a Sonic game, though, it's not very good because it really isn't a Sonic game. It's really more of a Mario game that just happens to star Sonic in it. And that's not really what I wanted for the Sonic franchise. Thankfully, Sega, I guess, decided, okay, yeah, we don't really want this for the Sonic franchise either, so they went back to the Boost formula, which made a lot of people happy, but then we got to see more of the level design. And over the course of time, a lot of people really didn't see anything good to come of it. A lot of people really didn't like the level design because we saw a lot of what we thought at the time were early levels, and a lot of people thought the level design was very simplistic and boring. And I thought, like, is that any different from Sonic Generations' Green Hill, or Sonic Colors even with Tropical... I want to say Tropical Coast. Tropical Resort. That's what it was. God damn it, they reused that Tropical so much. Or even Windy Hill was pretty simple. Like, all of the first stages are usually pretty simple and easy and bland in some ways as well. Especially the ones that utilize Green Hill. We didn't see Green Hill for Modern Sonic, but we knew it was a safe assumption it was coming since we knew it was coming for Classic Sonic, who was once again returning for some goddamn reason. That is something I did have complaints about. And the OC had a Green Hill stage, which I actually thought looked decent. Unfortunately, it's one of the worst stages in the game, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So, from all the pre-release stuff, I didn't really get anything exciting from Forces. It didn't really grab me, but at the same time, I was still hyped for it just because it was another Boost Sonic game in a similar style to Generations. And I thought, okay, if this game is good, I'll give it a pass. I'm not really happy that you're going back to using Green Hill and Chemical Plant again, especially since we just got these zones again in Mania, but I'll let it slide if the game is fun. And it looked like it was still the same Boost formula I had and had fun with. But over the course of time, people just were not happy with what they saw. And I thought some of it looked interesting, and I was telling people, okay, dude, guys, we haven't seen the entire game yet. Eventually, the game was leaked, and then we saw more of the game, and some people thought it was better. I thought it actually looked better at first. Then I played it, and a lot of things changed. Yeah, so now that I talked about the pre-release stuff, from what I saw, what my initial impressions were, let's actually get to the game, and I'll start with a story since that's the easiest to get out of the way, because it felt like they didn't really spend much time on it, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it either. Alright, so Sonic Forces' story is... There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of good ideas that I really like. I love the idea that Eggman has taken over the planet and essentially rules the world with an iron fist. However, and I also love how it is a much darker storyline because of this, but it feels like it's a darker story because it makes sense. Eggman is a lot more serious, but also still keeps his attitude and his ego, and even his narcissism in some scenes as well. But he is a bit more menacing. I even like how Cubot and Orbot actually really joke about how Eggman's like, holy shit, he actually is serious this time. That was a joke that was actually legit funny. And I think that was even in the Japanese version too, so that's actually like a decent joke as well. And the humor, when it was there, I thought could be funny at times, though it wasn't as prevalent as in past games, because you know why. Unfortunately, the story still sucks, because a lot of the great concepts they have are just never well realized or even well executed. Mainly because, I don't know, they just didn't put as much effort into the story as you thought they would, or maybe because it was just rushed or whatever. I don't know why, but the story feels like it went through several rewrites. So many scenes were cut or given to classic Sonic for the sake of giving him a purpose, even though he really has none. So the story begins essentially with Sonic being called by Tails. He's told, hey, Eggman's attacking the city, you know, get to the city, help us out. Sonic goes through Green Hill and somehow gets to the city. Since when was Green Hill next to a city? I mean, I guess it could be kind of next to where Radical Highway was, because to be fair, the city has, like, the Golden Gate bridges that kind of feel like Radical Highway if it were, like, in its, Bad Future from Sonic CD, which is interesting. In fact, if there is one thing I will give Forces, I do like the idea that some of these places are in the same world. Like, we actually get to see the chemical plant again, but it actually is, like, a confirmed canon place, and we know where it is. Green Hill is next to a city, and it could be a reference to Adventure 2. It could also just be a pure fucking coincidence. But at the same time, if it isn't, that's actually pretty clever world building, and I do appreciate that, but even that's done so limitedly. They don't really make any comments on it. They make a comment about Seaside Hill. We never really go there, but honestly, I'm not really angry about that because we had Seaside Hill again in Generations, so I don't really... Back to the story, though. When it comes to Sonic, he gets to the city, and then he meets Eggman, beats all of his robots, but then Eggman unleashes his super plan, which is Infinite and a bunch of Sonic's old bad guys. And an anti-hero, because Shadow's there for some reason. There's a reason, actually, and it's a really stupid cop-out, actually. Shadow, Chaos, or Chaos Zero, more specifically, Zavok, which I thought was pronounced Zavik, but then they said Zavok. I was just like, what? What? It's Zavok. I thought it was Zavik. Like, Havoc. Zavik. Get it? Like, he causes... Zavik causes havoc. Hey. But, no, it's Zavok. I was just like, what? So I've been pronouncing it wrong this entire time? Apparently, Clement actually looked up the name, and yeah, it actually is Zavok. Metal Sonic, Shadow, Zavik, and Chaos. Those are the four guys. And Infinite is the new bad guy. He's the new Sonic OC. He's not a hedgehog. He's actually a wolf, I think. But whatever, he's an OC. So with that said, Infinite, it comes in, and all of them beat the ever-living shit out of Sonic in, admittedly, what is a pretty awesome cutscene. And then Sonic is just knocked out. Then Tails, you know, yells out for Sonic, and then it just fades to black. Already I was weirded out by this because I was like, What? That's it. That's the intro. No build up, maybe some establishing shots on how Eggman captured Sonic and took over the world. Maybe nothing on how Tails was actually able to escape. Because why would they let Tails get away? I mean, I know Tails isn't as competent as Sonic, but still, come on, like, you're just gonna let him get away? Really? Like, why is Knuckles here? Why is Silver here? No, maybe Silver's future was fucked by Eggman, and that's why he's here. No? Nothing? No? Nothing at all? No establishing shots? No reasons for why the characters teamed up together? No establishing of the Resistance? Maybe the Avatar would, like, help round up the Resistance alongside Knuckles? Maybe everyone's too scared, but maybe the people... nothing. There's no establishing on how Eggman took over the world. He just owns the world now. And that's pretty much it. He just owns the world, and that's it. Also, Sonic runs from Green Hill all the way to the city. Why is it sunset immediately once... Did Eggman's attack start, and then Sonic just arrived late to the party? For the fastest thing alive, you really are slow, Sonic. How did Eggman do all of this so quickly? Like, okay, apparently he didn't. It was 6 months. But still, like, we couldn't see, like, maybe a clip show of what happened during those 6 months, no? And it said that Sonic was confirmed dead. Now, in the Japanese version, he was just captured. Why did they feel the need to add that he was dead? Like, it doesn't make any sense, because Sonic clearly just blacked out. He didn't die. If he died, what they should have showed that would have somewhat convinced me is maybe Tails ran away in fear, which I know a lot of people say Tails is a wuss in this game, but whatever. Let's just keep him a wuss for the sake of the story and fixing its problems. Tails runs away because he's too scared of Infinite. He runs away like a coward, which actually would maybe drive him insane because he would feel like a failure for Sonic. And then afterwards, he would hear Sonic screaming as in pain and agony, and maybe that would be a decent reason for why people would think Sonic is dead. That would actually be a decent reason. It would show that Tails gets away, Eggman tells him to finish off Sonic and just leave Tails because he's insignificant, and, you know, just, it would be a better start to the story. But no establishment. Like, I know what some people would say, well, isn't that really dark? This is supposed to be a darker story, isn't it? And it would confirm that Sonic would probably be... Maybe that's why Tails would think he's dead, because he's just so messed up after abandoning him, and he heard the scream, but no, nothing. Now, to be fair, in the Japanese version, that's not there. That's not there, like, at all. But at the same time, it's still stupid. Why do they say he's dead? Why didn't they just leave... whatever. Stupid dubbing choice. I think they only did that just to add tension to the story, but it didn't work because it doesn't fit with the narrative. It just comes out of left field, and that's it. So, afterwards, 6 months pass, the 6 months pass, and Knuckles has established the Resistance. Tails has apparently lost it, though when we see him, he looks perfectly fine. Like, yeah, okay, a little bent out of shape in the sense that, you know, Sonic may be gone, but he's still fighting for Sonic, so he's still fighting, trying to, you know, save Omega, so I don't really see how he's lost it in any way. But whatever, he's lost it, he's so torn up, even though he doesn't look the part, but whatever. Then Chaos comes and attacks Tails, but classic Sonic is actually able to save him. And you don't have a boss fight before you say anything. No. You know, we actually had a boss fight with Adventure Sonic. He was Super Sonic, granted, but he was still Sonic. Adventure Sonic. And then we had one with Modern Sonic in Generations. Wouldn't it be cool to have a classic Sonic version of that fight? Nope. Nope. No. If you thought that would happen, you're hilarious, but no. No. No, fucking no. So, after Classic Sonic easily beats Chaos Zero, actually, no, given Adventure, maybe it would be that easy. Whatever. Chaos is out. He's down for the count. No boss fight with him. He's just in it for fan service. He comes back later on for reasons I'll explain later. But yeah. Classic Sonic's here, and him and Tails go on a little adventure, and they find out that Eggman has a plan after they meet up with Infinite and Eggman, that he plans to unleash something in 3 days, and they have to get back to the Resistance. And that's the end of Tails and Classic Sonic's story. You know, the idea of Classic Sonic and Tails, modern Tails, spending time together and becoming friends, is actually a decent idea for a story. It's actually decent to have two perspectives, one from Tails and classic Sonic, and one from modern Sonic and the rest of the Resistance. That's actually pretty interesting. Unfortunately, it doesn't go anywhere because classic Sonic really doesn't do anything. So if you wonder why I don't mention him in the rest of the plot synopsis, it's because he really doesn't do much. Classic Sonic really only exists to do like maybe two things, and that's it. He really, and for the final boss, I guess, but that's about it. He really doesn't do anything. He just is there for fan service, I guess, and that's really all he's there for. It's like they didn't know what to do with him there. He was just added in at the last year of development, which he most likely was since we didn't see that much footage of him. News that Sonic is alive reaches the Resistance. Like, not even one level after all of that. Like, Sonic is just confirmed alive right before the first level, and I think after that, that you go to Chemical Plant for whatever reason, I forget why, and then afterwards they say, okay, we gotta rescue Sonic. And that's it. Really? Really? Alright, that was some tension. We thought Sonic was dead, and then... and apparently Sonic was tortured for 6 months as well, yet he looks no worse for wear. If you're wondering why that is, that was also added in the English version. It was not in the Japanese version. Sonic is eventually freed. Actually, he frees himself because the Death Egg lost its power for like 2 seconds. What? And fights Zavok, who dies immediately afterwards, and that's it for him. Half of the bad guys just gone already. Wow, that's fast. And afterwards, Sonic and the Avatar meet up. Sonic saves the Avatar, which, okay. And afterwards, they leave in one of Eggman's shuttles, which, wait, that's it? You just leave? Eggman just let you leave? Like, are the other Resistance members there? Or is it just the Avatar? Alright, whatever. By the way, the Avatar is called the Rookie the entire time because they don't actually want to bother giving him a name. You can't actually name any of your avatars, which is, I find odd. Why can't you? I know you could just write down a name or think of one in your head, but I certainly didn't do that. I wanted to just give him a name. Afterwards, Sonic meets up with Infinite. Infinite and Sonic share some banter. Sonic saves Silver, they fight, and then he leaves. Infinite doesn't finish off Sonic when he had the chance because... blah-dee blah 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 with a blah on top of blah on blah. In other words, we're Sonic heroes, aka I don't fucking know. Why doesn't he even just finish him off? It would take 2 seconds to do so. But no. Now, so Sonic, he wants to find out the source of Infinite's power, which, you know, he talks about him. Of course he wouldn't tell you, Sonic. But anyway, in the meantime, you know, Sonic and the Resistance, and eventually Tails and Classic Sonic meet up. They do a bunch of shit to help the world and destroy generators and the Death Egg eventually. And then afterwards, there's the final battle, and eventually the combined forces, sorry, of Classic Sonic, Modern Sonic, and your OC eventually team up together to stop Infinite and Eggman once and for all. It's eventually revealed, actually, that Infinite's power also... He doesn't... His powers are never really explained fully, but it's essentially like a mind manipulation. Mind manipulation. Not mind control, not like mind powers, though I guess he could... He sort of like bends your perception of reality, which is actually really a neat power. It's actually a really cool ability. You can sort of make people see whatever you want, but it's not actually there. But it feels real to you, so it's a part of your reality. Therefore, if he wants to throw a truck at you, you'll see a truck. No one else will, because he doesn't care about any of those. But if you see one, it's become a part of your reality, which means that truck can hit you in the face and kill you. That's actually a pretty cool ability. But it's never really elaborated on or really explained well where he gets this power from besides, oh, the Phantom Ruby. As for the time and space powers for Mania, there have been theories that Mania actually isn't canon in some ways and actually isn't... Like, it never happened. There are theory videos about that, and some people have said that can explain it, but we don't know if that actually is the case. Yes, Sega could come out and say, oh, well, yeah, that was totally the case, but... how do we know they're not just pulling shit out of their ass? And at the same time, Classic Sonic is real. If Mania never really happened, then Classic Sonic shouldn't even exist. Also, why are the timelines suddenly separate? Classic Sonic is constantly said to be from another dimension.
That's Sonic from another dimension, aren't you? Doubles of us? Places and enemies from our past? We're traveling through time and space!
He was confirmed in Generations to be from, like, an older time period. So why is he suddenly just now, oh, now he's a Sonic from another dimension? Guys, you could at least try and give a shit about continuity. Like, stop! You did it with Blaze, and Eggman Nega, and now freaking Classic Sonic. Like, really, stop! So, oh, and Infinite's power. I'm jumping all over the place. Who cares? The story has no effort put into it. Infinite's power is essentially mind manipulation. Where does he get that power? I believe it's from generators that Eggman made. We never see any of these generators at all. All of those clones you see, Zavok, Shadow, Metal Sonic, all of them are fake. They're not actually the real thing. First off, and I know Sonic comments on this in the story in English, I'm not sure about Japanese. Why make a fake out of something that's already fake? Alright, that was funny, and it makes sense. It's like you're pointing out your own plot holes, actually. But with that said, like, why make a fake out of Metal Sonic? I know Metal Sonic is not really loyal to you, but... whatever. Shadow... The real Shadow comes in and defeats his own clone. You fight a giant Metal Sonic, which is actually pretty neat, actually. I'll give it credit. That's actually pretty neat for... you know, a boss fight. That's actually neat. It's one of the better Metal Sonic boss fights, definitely. Because I'm not really a fan of all of them. Like, I don't really like the Racing CD that much. It's kind of annoying with the spike placement. It's fine. It's an epic moment, but I really didn't like the spike placement. The one in Mania, I definitely didn't like. I thought it went on way too long, and the second phase was really annoying. So it is one of the better boss fights. But overall, it's, you know, Metal Sonic is just... you know, he's there for some reason. I don't know why they couldn't... Eggman just couldn't rebuild a more loyal version of him, but whatever. Classic Sonic defeats, you know, Chaos. Oh, and there's Episode Shadow, which apparently goes over the origins of Infinite. This is what happened. He beat up Infinite a little bit, and then he became a bitch. So all I know at this point is that Infinite's backstory is... he's a whiny bitch that got beaten by Shadow, and now he's... you know, a whiny bitch with powers. Afterwards, Infinite has powers of mind manipulation. He can make clones of a bunch of other people, but he never really utilizes his powers to the fullest potential. If you can manipulate the mind, how far can you go? Like, why can't you, like, manipulate the mind to make it seem like you're changing and morphing into something else? Maybe, like, that you're bleeding, or that, I don't know, or even better, that Resistance members can start killing each other because they actually look like egg pawns now. If you can manipulate the mind in any way, like... why don't you do that? Or can you not do that? Can you, why don't you manipulate a fucking airplane to come in and just crash it in the middle of a city? Again, whatever is real, whatever Infinite wants you to see, it becomes your reality.
Whoa, you gotta be kidding! That's just a special effect, right?
No, it's not. While we're under the Phantom Ruby's control, it's a part of our reality.
So why not take full advantage of that? That's actually a pretty broken ability because you can mess up someone's mind really badly. You'd be surprised what you can make people see with their feelings and emotions, and not to mention their loyalties, their fears. There's so much you could do with that power, and you just don't utilize it. We don't know the rules about the Phantom Ruby. They're not really explained. And I know this is Sonic, but at the same time, if you're gonna tell a darker story that's more serious and has more of an epic feeling, you need to do it right. The story is just so half-assed and half-hearted. By the end of the day, when I feel like it was just another day in Sonic's life, not, oh god, like the world's like really messed up and I gotta save it, and when I beat Eggman it's a moment of triumph. No, it's more like, oh well, that was an adventure. That's how it ends. That's literally how it ends. I was just like, really? That's it? And it really does have that ending too. I mean, yeah, even the relationship between the Avatar and Sonic, honestly, isn't like... There's implied that he looks up to Sonic eventually, And that's fine, you know, it's fine to have him as an older brother figure, because that's actually what I would want to be if I were in the Sonic universe. Problem is, it doesn't really do anything for me when I don't care about any of the characters or what's going on. The story just happens, and it feels like it was just a really neat idea for a story just to draw in a crowd. And that's honestly what it is. It drew in a crowd, so I guess it worked, especially in Japan, since it actually sold a lot better in Japan this time around compared to other Sonic games, so I guess that makes it okay. The story of Forces is just very simplistic and dull, and it's, you know, Infinite is a weak-ass villain. Seriously, he gets beaten by Shadow once, and then he turns like, oh, I'm evil and I'm gonna kill anyone, and, you know, now I wear a mask because the old me is like, really pathetic and weak, but now I'm not weak anymore because I guess, evil laugh, whatever. It's so, really, that's it? That's his origins? He's not like a completely nihilistic person who thinks that life is a curse or something. I don't know. You could have made this guy so edgy and dark, and you would have had a perfect excuse. You could have made him the freaking... You could have made him so dark and edgy and really creepy. And Liam O'Brien's voice work is really good, too, for Infinite. I feel bad for him because he tries. In fact, if there is one thing I can say, the characterization and voice acting, for the most part, is actually decent. Infinite is a bad character, but Liam O'Brien's voice is really good.
Is there no end to these annoying insects? I will burn your resistance to ashes, and you along with it.
He fits the character very well, so he is better than Mephiles in that department. Plus, I actually do enjoy his design, and especially his theme. That theme makes him out to be just such a freak of nature, and it just is a shame that he's actually not a freak of nature, he's just a bitch. You know, a bitch of a bounty hunter. That's really all he was. With the Jackal Squad. That's apparently what was his squad name? Didn't really work. He was a mercenary who was hired by Eggman, and he is part of the Jackal Squad. But everyone apparently is killed by Shadow. At least I assume they were killed by Shadow, because we never see them again. Everything around Infinite is awesome, except for his actual backstory and character. When you realize what he really is, it takes away a lot more from his character more than it adds, and that's really a shame. But for the characters that are already a part of the franchise, like, I actually think Silver's voice and personality is actually decent. You know, Amy's is decent, she's not annoying for once. And she's not all lovey-dovey for Sonic. Like, you can still tell it's the same Amy, but she's a little bit more mature now, which is nice. Knuckles is now the leader of the Resistance, which I found hilarious since everyone made fun of him. And there's this one line he has, "None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war." Like, Jesus, Knuckles, tone down the Mustang from Full Metal Alchemist. Like, seriously, they share the same voice actor, by the way. It's Travis Willingham. Shadow, actually, I will say, is actually done decently well. He actually feels like SA2 Shadow for once. He doesn't feel like, ugh, I'm edgy and dark. But, like, he still has the darker voice, but he feels more like an actual person this time around. He feels like he's actually a living being. He actually does make a quip at Eggman that's actually fairly funny. So it's like, when Eggman's defense squad just completely, like, dies, I guess, or is destroyed, Shadow said, "I guess you should have hired a defense squad for the defense squad." I was just like, alright, that gave me a chuckle. Like, that was actually a decent line for Shadow, you know? It made me feel like he was more of a darker reflection of Sonic and not just edgy to hedgy, you know? It was just nice to see that, because everyone knows Shadow as just the emo, edgy, hedgy hog person that he usually is, and I really don't like that version of Shadow. I don't like what they've done to him over the course of the series, making him all emo. And I'm happy to see Shadow has a bit of derailment to his character, so that's nice. My only problem is that Shadow seems like he's going to be more important to the story since he has a connection with Infinite, but they never really do anything with it after, Episode Shadow, which is a DLC, a free DLC mission thing that is supposed to elaborate on certain events. It doesn't. But with that said, he just kind of comes and goes. Like, He seems important, and what they do with him early on is actually pretty neat. But once the main story kicks in continuity, he just sits back and does nothing. Also, where did Shadow go? Like, where did he go for those 6 months? Did he just sleep for an entire half a year and that's it? Eggman's taking over the world around you. You don't do anything until now? He just shows up out of nowhere, kills his own clone, and then that's it. Also, these clones make no sense because Zavok apparently remembers his events of getting his ass fucking whooped in Sonic Lost World. Apparently, he has memories of that. Why? They're clones. They don't have emotion or memories. They shouldn't. It was Infinite copying memories from, like, Eggman's memory machine? Did he capture Zavok at one point and sapped away his memories and put them into a clone? How does that make sense? I mean, I know Eggman remembers some of the things, but not everything. You wanna know what I would like to see? And I know some people would probably have mixed feelings on this, but the Zeti actually may be coming to help Sonic and his crew. Since maybe their world was taken over, because we actually do see the Lost Hex again, which, yeah, we actually see it again. Or at least it looks like the Lost Hex. I think it was implied to actually be the Lost Hex. At least that's what I think it was, which is actually decent because it shows that it is actually just a part of Sonic's world, though at this point it's not really Lost Hex, it's really more of a hex. What I would have liked is maybe the Zeti help out Sonic, or maybe they join his side after some convincing and maybe help fight Eggman. It's just like, I don't know, I just would have liked to have seen that. The one personality I really hate what they've done with is Tails. Tails is a complete wimp. He doesn't do any of the fighting. He only really exists to tell the Avatar something, and that's it. And every other time, he's just a whiny little bitch who runs away from fights, and that's pretty much it. He doesn't really do any of the fighting himself. He cowers in fear at the mere sight of Chaos Zero.
Chaos! Sonic, help me!
Chaos Zero, not Chaos 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or 6, or even Perfect. No, it's freaking Chaos Zero. Really? That makes you, like, go, Sonic, help me! Really? Charmy is more badass than Tails in this game. Tearing apart the story, I guess I can talk about the game. Actually, before I talk about the game, let's talk about everything else. The graphics, they look decent, they look polished, they look well done. Some of the textures clearly are ripped from other Sonic games, but whatever, I expect that. The game overall looks about as good as Generations, just with a bit more polish to its frame rate, which is nice. It is nice to play a boost Sonic game in 60 FPS that isn't on PC for once. So that's nice. The soundtrack, which I actually, controversial statement, I like the soundtrack more than Mania's. Maybe it's just because there's more original themes here, and I've just heard the originals to death at this point. And, you know, hearing them again was fine, but not something I was too happy about. But with Forces, all of the tracks are mostly original, and most of them are really good. I love the Avatar's synth techno music with the lyrics. It's very cheesy. I especially love modern Sonic's. Not every theme of his hits a home run. Like the final level music was not really sticking with me, but every other theme of music was actually really, really good. With some of my favorites from the Avatar and modern Sonic being probably Prison Hall, the final Avatar level. I know not many people enjoyed that one for some reason. I really enjoyed the Metropolitan Highway one, the one where Infinite's chasing you the entire time. That's one of my favorites. That was actually sung by the by the lead singer, I think, of the Dead Man Wonderland opening theme. So that's really neat how they got him. He's a really good singer. The space level, the Death Egg level for modern Sonic, which actually is neat because it's the first time we've ever seen a Death Egg level in 3D. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? The Metal Sonic music, both the remix of the American theme, the American boss theme, and especially the theme that plays beforehand. You barely hear any of it, and I'll let you listen to it right now. So yeah, that theme is amazing. That's probably my favorite piece of music, and you barely hear it, which pisses me off. So yeah, that's dumb, but whatever. It's a pretty good soundtrack. I know it's a bit synthy and techno, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree that I actually like it more than Mania's. I know everyone's probably gonna get on my case for that, but hey, that's me. Maybe I'm just a guy who likes techno and synth. This certainly wouldn't be the first time. I mean, I love MVC3's soundtrack, and that's nothing but techno and synth for the most part, so great soundtrack. The only weak link, unfortunately, for me is classic Sonic. His music is... It's not good. As for the lyric themes, since, yeah, we actually have a theme song for a Sonic game again, that's actually something. I really enjoy Fist Bump. I know some people would disagree with that too. Ted from Brain Scratch Comms. But a lot of people seem to have had it grown on them, and I actually really enjoy Fist Bump. I actually really like it. I think it's a great song. Infinite's theme is amazing. That's probably my favorite lyric theme in the game, besides, you know, some of the Avatar stuff, which is also good. Oh, there's a third theme that plays at the end credits. It's boring. It's boring. That's it. But I do enjoy the final boss theme as well, even though the final boss itself is lame. The theme itself is actually really good, so that's another hit. There are a lot of hits. There are some weak points, and it's not the best Sonic soundtrack. I do definitely prefer other soundtracks. I think Adventure has a better soundtrack. Sonic 2 has a better soundtrack. I would say Adventure 2 even has a better soundtrack. And 06 has a better soundtrack. I'd probably even say Heroes in Shadow probably have a better soundtrack, though I do enjoy the lyrical themes more in this game than the ones in Shadow, because some of the ones in Shadow are just dumb. But overall, the soundtrack has a lot of hits. It's a decent soundtrack. And now for the gameplay. Oh boy. Alright, so as for the gameplay itself, it's split up into 3 sections. There's modern... Actually, no, wait, there's 4. Kind of, sort of 4. There's 4 gameplay styles. Kind of. There's Modern Sonic, there's the Avatar, there's Classic Sonic, and then there's Modern Sonic with your OC. Yes, you have they have 3 separate gameplay styles for those. Modern Sonic is probably the best of them. He's the best style, he has some of the best moments in the game. But overall, his moments don't even come close to the highs in Colors, Generations, or hell, even half of Unleashed. You know, the one half of Unleashed that was actually good. You know, the daytime levels. It doesn't even come close. And this is because Modern Sonic doesn't control as well as in the previous games. His jump... It's weird. When you're just moving slowly, Modern Sonic actually controls fairly well. But when you reach high speeds, he suddenly goes from, like... He goes from, like, a steady walk or a jog to, like, instantly running to the top speed. He just instantly goes to that speed. It's like his acceleration is... He has auto acceleration. It's weird because the other modern Sonic games, he went from a steady jog to a steady run, and then the only way you would instantly reach your top speed, instantly, is if you push the boost button. Which was natural. It felt natural. But unfortunately, with this game, it doesn't do that. It just... You have this auto-acceleration that just kicks in. Practice with Modern Sonic sometime. In fact, Classic Sonic and the Avatar have it too. Classic Sonic it doesn't have it with, because, well, it does actually. It just, it's not noticeable because Classic Sonic is the slowest of all the characters. Yes, the Avatar is faster than classic Sonic. Figure that one out. The Avatar has it too, and it's even more noticeable with him because, you know, he doesn't have a boost. He doesn't have a boost. He's not Modern Sonic. He doesn't have a boost. Modern Sonic is weird because of this, because his platforming as well, you think because, oh, well, since he actually controls fairly well when you're slowing down, well, that must mean he's not too much of a bitch to platform with. Wrong! I don't know what it is, but it's like, he seems really slippery because of his weird auto-acceleration, but suddenly, for some reason, when you're jumping, it's like his auto-acceleration stops and his jump is really slow. Some people bitch about the jumping being really floaty and slow in Adventure. I didn't mind it. I actually liked it because it felt natural for me to do that. It felt like it would help me with better with jumping. But unfortunately, it doesn't do that here. It's stiff when you jump. It feels so stiff and slow and sluggish and really awkward. And at the same time, I absolutely despise the double jump in this game. Okay, I hate the double jump. Just take it out of Boost Sonic. The only time the double jump ever worked for me was in Lost World. Lost World did the double jump, in my opinion, not perfectly, but mostly pretty good. Unfortunately, in this game, I don't know what happened. The double jump, oh my god, it goes back to Sonic Colors where the double jump kind of cancels your momentum. But unlike Colors, where it actually gave you some height, which was nice, it does not do that at all. And 3D platforming is a complete crapshoot with Sonic. Also, there's something that's really fun and really funny about Modern Sonic's jump. I'm going to show you it right now. Here's a clip of it. Now, in previous Modern Sonic games, I don't really think you could ever do that. This game, however, doesn't give a shit. You can actually do that as much as you want to. His jump, all you have to do that is just hold the jump button, which makes me feel like his controls weren't finished yet. Like, it's still in beta, and there's still some glitches they have to iron out, but they never did, and they're never going to. His controls are so unfinished. He doesn't even have a drift. He doesn't have a drift either, which is weird. Like, why did they take out the drift? And some of his other jumping mechanics, like some of his other little mechanics, like the short hop, are just completely removed. Overall, I really don't like how Modern Sonic controls at all. He is probably the worst controlling Modern Sonic. I'd say even Unleashed actually controls better, because Unleashed, look, I like that half of Unleashed, I really do, but he didn't control the best because he was very stiff in certain sections. His jumping was very stiff as well, but not Force's levels of stiff. Unleashed controls so much better than this piece of shit. And that's really unfortunate. Sometimes I miss really easy jumps, or jumps that I think should be easy, but for some reason they're not. Classic Sonic doesn't control much better. In fact, Classic Sonic, I'll go out and say, is probably the worst style in the game. He only has 5 levels and 1 boss fight, besides the final boss, and that's it. That's it. He has 2 bosses and 5 levels. He doesn't even have any extra levels. The Avatar has them. Modern Sonic has them. Not Classic Sonic, which I guess is a blessing. It's still like, why'd you even bother putting him in the game? But Classic Sonic is probably my least favorite style out of any of the styles. Mostly just because he really... God, I don't know whether... It's weird. I think he has the same problem as Modern Sonic, but without the boost, and it's in 2D. but something about classic Sonic feels so stiff and slippery at the same time. He's slippery on the ground, he's slippery and skittish on the ground, but in the air he's like really stiff. His jump kind of goes far sometimes and sometimes doesn't. It feels so off and awkward, and this is not Sonic Mania at all. I don't know how to describe classic Sonic, because there are times where he controls really badly because he's really slippery and finicky, and other times he's really stiff. It kind of decides on itself. It's so weird and awkward, I can't even put it into words, it's so bad. You just have to play it in order to know how bad it is. I know that's like kind of a cop-out, but it really is hard to describe them. They really are just bad controls. And classic Sonic is my least favorite style. The drop dash is integrated into it as well, and it's nowhere near as fun as it is in Mania. Mania was more free-flowing, you could do a lot more with it, it was more flexible because of the physics engine. Here, no. In fact, classic Sonic doesn't really have that good of physics, if he even has any at all. His momentum uphill is really wonky. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Rolling, it's weird. Rolling feels so automated too. Like sometimes there are times where it really works, but it doesn't really feel like it was supposed to. And then other times it feels like it just doesn't work even though I'm going downhill. Why aren't I going faster? The only way to pick up speed really is with the spin dash and the drop dash. I'd say the drop dash is actually better since it feels faster, but also less flexible. It feels more gimmicky in a way. There's even times where they actually legit just put a shit ton of enemies just to force you to use the spin dash. However, that's really annoying too because you don't have the square button instant spin dash from Generations, which I really enjoyed that. Why'd they get rid of that? Why can't they just keep that? I like that feature. Why can't we have it in every Sonic game? Please. Classic Sonic doesn't even control as well as he does in Generations, and that's just a sin. It's just really hard to control him, and he's really bad to play. He is definitely my least favorite style out of every one of the styles in Sonic Forces. Alright, I'm just going to sum up the avatar. He's modern Sonic without the boost and any of the other stuff. He has a slightly slower homing attack because of the grapple, and he has the Wispons, or the Wispons, whatever you want to pronounce them as. I'm just going to call them Wispons because it's easier to say. Wispons are essentially just, they're guns. Oh god, Shadow the Hedgehog. But no, these are cartoony guns. You have Flame, which is a flamethrower, which is by far the second best. You should always use that. Void, which is, in my opinion, actually the real best, because it sucks in everything, including rings, which makes it really easy S-ranks for you, because rings give you a shit ton of points. Hover, which is really broken in certain places. There's Drill, which is really good for speedrunning, apparently. I don't know how. Asteroid and Cube, which are completely fucking worthless. I don't know anyone who would ever want to use those. Overall, it's, you know, I guess it's a nice selection, but overall, they're very unbalanced. They feel very unbalanced and unfinished. You can pull off some really crazy stunts that I think you really shouldn't have been able to pull off. Also, the avatar has wisps. Yes, the wisps are back again. Alright, look, the wisps were fun in colors because they actually worked with the level design. They were actually designed around the wisps. The levels in colors were actually designed with the wisps in mind. Now the wisps just feel like a darn gimmick because they just feel like they're there just for the sake of being there, like it checks off a box. To be fair, they're only really in the avatar levels. They are, the White Wisp capsules are in Modern Sonic, in his levels for the boost, for some reason, but whatever. That's really it. All of the other wisps are made for the avatar. However, here's the weird part. The wisps, you can only use a certain type of wisp, a certain type of gun. So if you have a Void Wisp, you can't use any of the other wisps. You can only use Void Wisps that you find in the level. But not every level has the wisps, and some of them lead to alternate routes. So because of this, you're encouraged to switch up your Wispons in order to get shortcuts for red rings and shit. Thing is, some wisps do the exact same thing as another wisp. Like, the Burst Wisp is used for certain red rings, but you can grab them with the Hover Wisp as well, so what's the point? And there are some Wisps where you can use the Void, but you can also use, like, the Lightning Wisp, which I forgot to talk about, actually, which is just a Lightning Whip. So why bother even using your Void Wisp if you can just easily get it with a Lightning Wisp? So it's just like, some Wisps are just there to do multiple things, and some of them do the same thing or lead you to the same paths, so whatever, what's the point? Besides wasting my time switching up weapons, you know? I would have liked it better if maybe, depending on the Wispin gun, and depending on the Wisp it actually has, you actually get a different ability, or maybe instead your gun can hold multiple Wisps and maybe combine the abilities together, or maybe you just have one gun, but it can switch up Wisps depending on what power-ups you grab, and that's what Wispiny has. So whatever you want to use, that's up to you, but you have to grab the Wisp in the level first. I actually think a little bit of customization would really go a long way, but no, you can't really customize your Wispin or what Wisp it uses. Can't really do any of that. Like, maybe the Wisps could be power-ups in the level for your gun, and only for your gun. And, like, your gun is just a typical, like, blaster or something like that, but when you get the Wisp, like, say I get the Lightning Wisp in a level, my blaster becomes a Lightning Whip, or it becomes a Flamethrower when I get the Flame Wisp, or the Burst Wisp. I think that would have been a better way to do it, because I think that would be more interesting, but I guess not. As for the Avatar and his controls, he actually controls a lot worse than modern Sonic. His jump is so weird. It carries way too much momentum. It's weird. Modern Sonic has the opposite problem. It doesn't carry enough momentum. The Avatar it carries way too much momentum. Like, you go way farther and really overshoot those platforms in a way that you do not want to. And because of that, the Avatar is just really, really uncomfortable to control. It's really not fun to play as him when you're platforming. There are times where I just completely miss platforms and go into a pit when I really should have made it. And I consider myself decent enough at platformers. I do screw up quite a bit, but this time I didn't really feel like it was my fault for screwing up. It felt like it was the game's fault for not having good enough control. Like, if I die in Adventure 1 or 2, I usually blame myself, because those controls are so tight and well done. Hell, even in Generations, and sometimes even in Colors, even though Colors has its own jumping and controlling issues. But in my opinion, no. I legit blame Forces because of its incompetent control. It's not the worst control ever. It's definitely no Sonic 06 or, say, Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's definitely not fun to control these characters, and I definitely think, I personally think that these controls, honestly, it's weird. They go through so many, like, they go through so much back and forth between slippery and really bad and stiff. It's weird. It just depends on the gameplay style, but modern Sonic is way too slippery on the ground, but he's really stiff in midair. Classic Sonic does both whenever he wants to, because it's so broken and unfinished. And the Avatar kind of is just way too slippery to control. It's slippery even on the ground. It feels like he has way too much momentum both on the ground and in the air. And sometimes you don't have enough momentum because you're just jumping, but you didn't actually start moving until you started jumping. So because of that, you won't jump far enough because it's not carrying any momentum. It's a completely momentum-based jump. And you can't even turn around while jumping either, or at least not that much. Usually you have enough mid-air control to sort of fix the jump. Like, if you think you're not going to make it, you can move back a bit. You can't do that. You can't do that. And you can use a double jump, which might help you a bit, but the double jump is pretty much just as bad as modern Sonic's, so there's really no difference. And as for modern Sonic and the Avatar, this was the one gameplay style I actually think had the most fun level design, because they actually had a way to kind of get crazy with it. My favorite level actually in the game is Null Space, because I actually think, minus the first section with the stupid mash X to win, or square to win, I don't know, I forget, I don't care. Besides the mash button to win, I actually think that's the best level in the game, mostly just because it has the most unique and fun level design out of the bunch, not to mention it has a lot of wide open pathways that you can take, not just depending on the Wisp, but also because of the Avatar's abilities really do come in handy for it. And I actually do think it's a fun level. It does feel like the most complete level in the game as well, and as Fist Bump playing in the background, so that of course also helps. With that said, I actually think the style could actually be used to make a sequel, a pseudo-sequel in some way, but instead of it being just modern Sonic and the Avatar, and classic Sonic, just don't have classic Sonic and don't have modern and Avatar separate. Keep them together. Have the Avatar form a bond with Sonic, a friendship, sort of like how Tails was. Maybe even instead of the OC, you could have like Sonic Advance 3 in 3D, where you could have Sonic and Tails join up as partners in a 3D game. We never really had that with, you know how in Sonic Adventure, where Tails was your partner for the levels when you replayed them, or even in the story mode, and how you always had Tails at your side in the 2D games? Maybe they could do that for 3D as well, only they could actually have a multiplayer system where Tails is actually with you the entire time, like a co-op multiplayer mode in 3D, maybe with split screen even. And I'm talking about like a real one for the story mode. And maybe they could even have sort of like a Sonic Advance 3 thing where they have different abilities depending on what partner you have. If you have Knuckles, if you have Tails, or Amy, or Sonic, or Shadow, or Silver, or Blaze. I think that would be a good idea. And they did use the style enough. It's not to the fullest extent it could be, because really it is just modern Sonic again, but the Avatar has a double jump, and you can switch, and the way you switch between them is actually kind of interesting. You don't switch between them in a normal sense. It just, say I'm using the boost, that's when I switch to the Avatar. But when I use the Wispin with the trigger buttons, then I actually switch to the Avatar. So it's like you don't really switch, you're just controlling Sonic with a bit more moves and options, which is kind of interesting. Though, to be fair, it is probably a bad reason of why they actually replaced the drift. Whatever. I mean, I guess I would prefer a switching option, but it controls fine enough. I wouldn't mind seeing this type of gameplay kind of form its own game, like a Sonic Advance 3 in 3D. I actually think maybe that should fix some of the game's problems since it has some really bad level design issues. But, you know, that's just from what I've heard. I've never actually played the game, but I think it could be a decent idea for a future game, so that's just me, though. With that said, overall, the gameplay styles are incredibly meh. They don't control all that great, and what's even worse is that even though the controls are meh, I would probably have a decent time with them, with the exception of classic Sonic. I probably would have fun with some of these controls, even though it feels meh, if the levels were actually decent.
Too much quiet is usually a sign of danger.
Yeah, it's probably a sign that they rushed their game. Again.
Best to play it safe here.
Oh, you mean like what Sega did with this game? The level design. Alright, so here's my description of the level design. The levels are incredibly basic. Classic Sonic's levels are incredibly empty. Like, what Tails just said, too much quiet is usually a bad thing. Oh my god, he could not be any more serious, because Classic Sonic's levels have so few enemies, and when there is enemies, it's usually like a row of them for your freaking spin dash and your drop dash, or an invincibility power-up that's just placed in the middle of a section for no reason other than, oh, there's a line of enemies, better do that. Every classic Sonic level has this ending where they usually have like a long stretch of road, sometimes with falling debris, or rockets, or enemies that you have to destroy with invincibility. Doesn't matter. The point is, you have these levels that just end with that moment. Classic Sonic has some of the worst and laziest design that feels very copy-paste as well. It feels like these levels were designed at the last minute. Like, there's one section in Death Egg with these platforms that kind of swing up and down, and whenever you stand on them, that's when they move up and down, and you're supposed to platform back to one platform to the next, like you're usually supposed to, but it's like they just placed them in a Mario Maker type level. Like, there's also like a cord or a metal piece of thing that kind of sticks out, but it doesn't like stick to the wall or anything. It just kind of sits there in midair. Like, you couldn't have extended that a bit to go to the wall so it would make sense and make the level a bit more organic in nature. No, you just have this lazy back and forth just copy-paste attitude. Some of the levels really are just very bland and straightforward and don't really offer... Some power-ups are just placed randomly there for no reason, and there's a shit ton of rings to make you think that something interesting is happening, because you're getting a lot of rings, but really you aren't. It's nothing interesting. Casino Forest as well. Oh god. There was like 2 enemies in the entire zone. 2 enemies. There's one enemy in like one place. I forget where it is. Maybe if I have footage of it, I'll show it. And there's like an enemy, I think, somewhere else. But other than that, the zone has 1 or 2 badniks. And that's it. That is literally it for badniks. When Tails said that things seem awfully quiet, he was not joking. And this is because the level design feels so unfinished and so, like, simplistic and dull. The physics feel bad too, and controls feel bad for classic Sonic, which really gives me the impression that they most likely added these levels at the last minute, and they didn't actually polish or finish up these levels in time. In other words, they rushed the game. Even though I thought they weren't going to, I thought they were done with that because the game was coming out a year after it was announced for once, but I guess that was the year they started development. And at the same time, Modern Sonic, his levels do feel the most complete, probably because they started working on him first. With that said, even though they did start working on him first, Modern Sonic's levels feel so underwhelming, because just when I'm about to get into a level, because Modern Sonic, he actually does have some decent levels. Some. Not a lot, but some. My favorite of his is the Death Egg level, and the, even the city level I actually really enjoyed, Sunset Heights, which, by the way, is not actually the first level. Remember when we thought that was actually going to be the first level because everyone was saying how simplistic it was? No, it's like in the middle of the game. The actual middle of the game. There's 30 stages in this game. It's stage 15. It's the middle of the game. Yeah, like for some damn reason, it's in the middle of the game for some reason, but I actually enjoyed the level. My problem is, though, the levels just kind of end without any flash or flare. Like, they have some, and just when a level starts to get interesting, like with Sunset Heights, like, oh yeah, I'm in this destroyed city surrounded by a bunch of Death Egg robots, and, you know, holy shit, things are exploding, it's kind of like a Michael Bay film for badass, and then suddenly, oh, Shadow's there. Okay, it ends. And then there's another example with the Death Egg level, like, oh yeah, I'm dodging this lasers, and, you know, I'm grinding on rails, I'm in space and shit, and oh, it just ends. Levels just end without any, these levels are so bland, and even when they're not, when they're actually really fun, they just end. No level goes over the 2-minute mark, with the exception of, like, all of classic Sonic's levels, which he by far has, like, levels that go on for, like, 3 to 5 minutes, and even they feel too long for one reason, probably because you just want it to end, because classic Sonic is just a pain to play as. With the Avatar and Sonic, Modern Sonic, the levels go on for, like, 2 minutes, not even. And they don't feel like complete levels. When it's not bland, copy-paste level design, there are some good ideas here. Unfortunately, just when they get to a decent gimmick, the level just ends. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 levels that feel complete out of all of the 30 stages in the game. There's like 2 or 3 levels that actually feel complete. And that's it. And that's really disappointing because they just end. That's really it. They don't even leave behind any impression. They just as a level starts to get good, or maybe you just want it to get interesting, they just end. Like, there could have been something in that shuttle section. Maybe the shuttle, you could have started right at the shuttle, in front of the shuttle. No, instead what you do is you just run along with this pathway, and then end. That's it. Some of these ideas are really cool. I love the idea of Infinite chasing me throughout the entire level and fucking around with the background. That's really interesting. But it lasts such a short amount of time that it doesn't have any impact. You know, and the level design, I love the idea of grinding in space, again, kind of like in Final Rush. Final Rush is awesome. It was actually a really fun grinding level with a lot of alternate pathways. Unfortunately, it just ends. It just ends. The final level for Sonic has some of the best level design in the game. It actually it's an all 3D stage, in Modern Sonic. When have we ever had that? Rarely, if never, I'd say. Not even the side missions. It ends so quickly. It ends like after a minute. And Sonic actually has a wall jumping ability. How much you want to bet that the Avatar's all 2D level was just the second half of Modern Sonic's level? That was supposed to be the 2D section, but they gave it to the Avatar because they wanted to save budget. They wanted to save the cost. They wanted to, you know, save the budget for the rest of the game. How much you want to bet they just split up the level? Because Modern Sonic and Shadow, actually, because Shadow is a skin. He doesn't have any differences from Sonic. He's just a skin. He has this multi-homing attack that Sonic does actually have, by the way. He just never uses it because the level design only, you know, the level design never allows for it to be used. Can actually use it. He just never does. Yeah, hacks actually proved it. Modern Sonic actually does have a wall jumping ability, but they never use it, and it's because I bet your ass that was supposed to be the second half of Modern Sonic's level, or maybe parts of it were. I swear, it must feel like it, because again, it goes underutilized. It goes underutilized. Sonic never has to wall jump, ever. And the game is way too automated. That's another problem I have. This game has just about as much automation as Sonic 06. I'm not even joking. Like, it has just about as much automation as Sonic 06, and this is because, I don't know actually, I don't know why it is. Maybe it's because they were worried about people complaining about glitches in the game, but Sonic Forces actually really isn't all that glitchy. It has its unpolished moments, but that's more due to its controls and level design, not so much, and even physics. That's really it. Just physics, controls, and level design. And to be fair, that's actually worse because it shows that they didn't finish the game. But in terms of glitches, I never really ran into anything glitchy. The game never crashed on me. It runs at a smooth, stable 60 frames per second and never really dips or anything. So, you know, I don't really see how glitchiness would be a problem. Hell, Generations is very glitchy. Generations has a lot of really funny glitches you can look up, but it's still a fun, polished game, I think. I mean, I love Generations. Generations is my favorite Sonic game. And to the person who commented on my Super Sonic is paid DLC rant, who said I was just a classic Sonic faggot, first off, yeah, I love Mania, but Generations is my favorite Sonic game. Even to this day, I like it more than Mania. For genuine reasons. So, go fuck yourself, by the way. Good sir, I forget your name. I'm not gonna call you out because I don't want people to, just go and look for trouble, but still, like, dude, really? I even praised Colors and said you should buy Colors instead, and he still gave me that comment. I'm not even sure why. The level design just feels like the level design has so much automation. There's so many loops and scripted events that you have no control over. You can't even boost in the middle of loop-de-loops anymore. Yeah, in Generations and Colors, you could boost through loop-de-loops. In fact, actually, there's a video I know that showed this, and you can't boost through those sections. I tried. Not even as Super Sonic. You can't boost through any of them. You just can't. That's how automated the game is. There are golden and red spheres that you can grapple on with the Avatar. The grapple is really underutilized, so don't get your hopes up. It's really automated because it only sends you to a certain place, and that's it. And afterwards, it either locks you out, or you can do it again, but it only sends you in an arc, and that's it. And with the red spheres, they're not automated. You can actually homing attack them, and once you do that, you can essentially swing, but it's a very automated arc, so it's just a typical swing. As for the golden ones, they're automated. They're essentially like loop-de-loops. Like this section right here, there's a golden loop-de-loop. Not a loop-de-loop. There's a golden sphere right here, and you just go through this place and go through these buildings. Just go through them, and that's it. You can't control any of that. And there's so many moments like that in the Avatar stages that it makes the stages feel even shorter. Modern Sonic isn't really, apart from this either. There's a lot of grind rails here, probably because they wanted to save on budget for the level design. I know Null Space is another grinding level, but it's another example of this. But to be fair, I think it makes up for it with having a lot of alternate pathways and buildings, and it is a city level, so it's pretty much like Rooftop Run in that sense. So I think it gets away with it enough, but other levels, it just feels like you're just grinding a lot. It's funny how a lot of the grinding levels have the most alternate pathways and some of the best level design out of the entire game. It's really funny how that works, because my two favorite modern Sonic levels, Null Space with the Avatar and Death Egg, you know, the first one was Sonic, those are my favorite levels in the entire game, in my opinion. And because of that, you know, and they're both grinding levels, so maybe the grinding levels were the best because they had a bunch of grind rails, because that would lead you to alternate pathways, because you could make more alternate pathways, because, oh, just grind rail here, grind rail here, grind rail here, you know, leads you to different pathways, simple as that. Maybe that's why they did so many. Just thought about that right now, save on budget. This game just feels like it only had a limited budget, and it did the best with what it could, but it feels rushed. It feels like they wanted to do a lot more with it. It feels like Sonic Team was held back from making something great because Sega just wanted to make a budget title that they could just release for their fans while their A-team works on something else. It really feels like that, and it's really disappointing because this is the first PS4 Sonic game. You really want to go all out for this, and they just didn't. It felt like they just didn't do enough. Because there are moments in this game that are really cool. Chances are I'll show you at this point the moments I really like in the middle of this video, for the rest of this video at this certain time. And if I don't, well, sue me, I forgot. But, you know, I will. And I'll even leave a comment if I remember to. That way you'll have proof that I'm doing it. But I love a lot of moments about this game. I love the premise, not the story, but the premise. I love the idea of the avatar, because a customized avatar, an OC, that's actually really neat. I really like that idea. But the way it controls and plays is not fun. The Wispins are very, very, very cookie cutter put together. Probably the worst part about it is that the customization is decent, but at the same time, there are definitely some things other customization systems like Soul Calibur have over it. Just as an example, since that's the biggest one I can think of. Hell, even Lego has over it. For example, you don't have any extra parts. You don't really have any extra, you know, body types except for the 7 they give you, and the clothes they give you are really, really lame. Like, they actually even have multiple colors as separate items. You can't just change the color of the equipment. No. If I want to take Shadow's shoes that I unlock later in the game and color them blue or whatever, I can't. I have to unlock the blue color. I can't just have it be blue with like a color scale or anything. No, I have to unlock it first. It's so stupid. Why? Why? Because it saves money for them actually making new shit. That's why they did it. It feels like they did a bunch of shit to just save money for a bigger project. And I'm not against bigger projects. I love Sonic Team when they get ambitious. Sometimes a bit too ambitious, to be fair, if Sonic 06 is because Sonic 06, as much as I despise the game, it was a very ambitious game. You gotta praise it for ambition. This game does not have any ambition. It doesn't have any purpose or goal. It is a game that is made for the sake of releasing a game, and that is it. That is really disappointing because I expect better from Sonic Team. What happened to the Sonic Team that gave me levels like City Escape, or the levels in Colors, or Generations? Oh my god, some of those levels are some of the best levels. I know they're just rehashes from previous stages, but the level design, there's so much thought and depth put into those levels. Holy shit, there's so many pathways I'm discovering to this day. What happened to the people that gave me levels like City Escape, or Emerald Coast, or Rooftop Run from Unleashed? Yeah, even Unleashed. Hell, Empire City. I love that level from Unleashed. That is an amazing level, probably one of the best in Unleashed. Even when Sonic Team flops, you can at least praise them for their ambition. But this game has no ambition. Shadow has more ambition than this. 06 has more ambition. Heroes has more ambition. And I am not saying any of these games are better than Forces, by the way. No, I'm saying Heroes and Shadow, and especially 06, got more effort put into them than Forces. Now, yes, Sonic 06 is a worse game. And yes, I know I'm going to piss some people off. I don't like Heroes, I'm sorry. I think Heroes is a worse game. I think Shadow is a worse game. But I thought those games had more thought and effort put into them than Forces did. You know, Shadow is a guilty pleasure, so there are moments of Shadow I do legit enjoy. There are moments where I go, huh, you know, that's actually pretty fun. You know, granted, it's only moments, but still, they're there. And Forces doesn't have any ambition, it doesn't have heart, it doesn't have soul. It is pretty much just a game that they're releasing for the sake of releasing it. The level design is some of the blandest and most copy-paste I've ever seen in a Sonic game, and the classic Sonic levels feel so cookie-cutter, been there, done that. I love how the names of the classic Sonic levels are just Green Hill, and Death Egg, and Chemical Plant. Really. Even the game is self-aware. It's so disappointing, is what it is. It's not the worst game ever. I've played far worse in Sonic. I have played far worse in Sonic and non-Sonic games. Overall, it's just a really mediocre game that just exists. It exists, and it's going to be forgotten about once something better pops up. The only reason it's probably ever going to be remembered in some fashion is because of two things. OC jokes, which, you know, and it's Sonic. That's it. Sonic Forces is just mediocre. It's not as bad as 06, you could do a hell of a lot worse, but you could do a hell of a lot better. And I am very disappointed in Sonic Team, because Sonic Team, there was a point where I thought they cared about Sonic. Even after 06, because we got Unleashed. Unleashed had tons of ambition and effort put into it. I hate the Werehog, and yeah, there are moments where Sonic Team can be too ambitious for their own good, but I appreciate that honesty and ambition. I felt like it was an earnest effort to make Sonic great again, and for a while they were succeeding. We got Colors, Generations, hell, I even liked Lost World. You know, I felt there was effort placed into that game. Maybe it was misplaced effort, but still effort. It was still earnest. It felt like they really were wanting to make this game. I don't know if it's just them fed up with the fan base, or if it's just them because they just gave up. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's time we get a new development studio. Maybe a lot of the big guys at Generations... You know, I know some of the people from Generations worked on Mario and Sonic, apparently. Which, why? Why are they working on Mario and Sonic and not a main game when they have proven they are good workers? Is it so that you don't have to... Is it so you don't have to pay them as much? Which is really shitty, by the way. Like, why are they working on Mario and Sonic? Get them on a main series Sonic game. And for those who were fired or laid off, maybe it's time to hire some new staff for Sonic Team. Maybe we can get another adventure game finally. Maybe it's time to go back to what Sonic... Because even though I love the Boost game, I love the Boost formula. Generations is my favorite game, but I do prefer the adventure formula overall, because I felt there could be more possibilities with it. The Boost style reached its peak in Generations. That was its peak. There are still some things you could do with it, but the Boost formula does... I think it reached near perfection in Generations. Adventure has never really had that perfection. Adventure 2 came close at times, but they never really reached its full potential, because after Adventure 2, they were building off of what worked in Adventure 1 with Adventure 2, and that was fine. It worked fine, at least in my opinion. Some people say it didn't, but that's what the intention was. And I thought it did it decently well. You know, they took what worked in Adventure and, tried to make it better. They tried to make what they had in it from Adventure 1 better. It does what it does to the best of its ability. And I thought they did that fine. But then they went in this weird direction with Heroes and Shadow. A bunch of development things happened where the Dreamcast died. Sega was in a really bad place. Unfortunately, probably money was tight because they lost a lot of money due to the Dreamcast dying, essentially. And not to mention, they had to make an entirely new engine for PS2 because, Sony essentially boycotted them because they said, if you're not going to release a Sonic game on our console, then we're not going to let you work on any Sonic games for the PS2. Which obviously Sega didn't want because, you know, PS2 was the highest selling console. You got to make that money off of them. So what they did was they made a new engine that was completely rushed and wasn't ready, and they made it for Heroes, and that's why it turned out so slippery. Then they did it for Shadow. Then they worked on the new Sonic 06. That turned out to be a disaster piece. And then they made Unleashed, you know? They made Unleashed. They got back up, said, okay, we really got to pay attention. Let Sonic Team do what they need to, do what they want to, give them that new passion and ambition. There's a new team with them. Some people, there's these new people working with Sonic Team to make a decent product. And while Unleashed certainly had its problems, I felt like for once, Sonic Team actually gave a shit again. And then afterwards, you know, we got Colors and Generations, and, you know, that was a whole new era of Sonic. Maybe it's time to go back to the old era, before even Heroes and Shadow, because that was when, even though they're essentially adventure games. They play like adventure, even if they don't control like adventure. They play like adventure. They still do adventure-esque things. You can still pick up objects in Shadow. You can still, you know, do the spin dash in Shadow. You can still homing attack like you do in Heroes and Shadow. It works like a... Shadow is essentially a Sonic adventure game with guns. That's all it is. Heroes is a bit more complicated, but it's essentially a Sonic adventure games where you have two buddies that you can play as with different gameplay styles. And even then, they're not radically different. Maybe it's time to go back to the adventure formula, because with the boost gameplay, maybe they don't have any more ideas for it. To be fair, the boost is a fairly shallow concept, but you can make it interesting with the level design, I think. Because Generations isn't shallow to me, and that's because of the level design. I can say the same thing for a lot of parts in Colors, and even a lot of parts in Unleashed. Going back to some of the levels in Unleashed, there are a lot more pathways than you would think in Unleashed. But it does make it very shallow in some way. Adventure, I feel, is a better formula for Sonic, and I think they've been so scared to go back to it because they're afraid that it's just going to look like Sonic 06. But I can assure you, if you make it right, if you make it good, you can avoid that scrutiny that Sonic 06 had if you just try and put effort into something. Sonic Forces is proof that Sonic Team either doesn't care or Sega doesn't care to give them enough money and give them a chance. And it really is quite a shame. They should not be treating their mascot this way. At least we have Mania. I mean, you know, Christian Whitehead is going to be sticking around, so, you know, at least we know the 2D games will be decent. Hopefully. Hopefully, if they don't screw those over. So, yeah, I mean, I'll make an update whenever I can on the DLC, see how it turns out. If it doesn't turn out well, that sucks, but if it does, yay. Game, because I really wanted to enjoy another Boost game, because the previous ones were so good, and this one is just so meh. But that's all for me. I'm the Seaman235, signing out. See you later.
hill's looking a lot more like Sand Hill right now.